Welcome to the True Demon Lord Show. I am, of course, the True Demon Lord, Franco, and I am joined by my fellow Demon Lord, Mr. Byron. How are you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. So, we are going to be talking about good old Demonic Incursion today. You know, the classic. Um, More specifically, Byron's incredible 6-0 performance at the Beachhead Brawl. Beachhead Brawl? I feel like
Yep,
that's not
that's
right.
it.
It's
That's
Beachhead Brawl.
right,
Cool.
yeah.
I knew it's Beachhead, and I was like, "Is Brawl right?" The Beachhead Brawl, which is is a 200-man super major, 200
200
man,
man, yeah. Yep.
on the south coast of England, which takes place every February. It's a big gaming expo thing as well. It's not just 40k. There's loads of shit that goes on there. Um, and obviously Byron went 6-0, came third out of 200 odd people. Absolutely incredible performance. Especially doing it with, I mean, Incursion is still amazing. I think people just are on the excess hype train, but you proved that it isn't just about excess. So this was a few weeks ago, so we are a little bit behind on the pale. Blame me for that because I didn't pull my finger out in time. Byron was poking me like, let's do video, let's do video. But we're doing it now. So um, before we do that, I've got to do the pluggy bits. So if you like what we do, leave a like and subscribe. You can keep up to date with everything on the channel, everything demonic that we do here. And if you like this content and really want to support us further, then please consider becoming a true Denizen member where you'll get some extra content and be able to keep up to date with stuff in advance. So, Mr. Byron, what did you run?
So we kind of go back to my original army list, the Twilight list, I like to call it, and I think that's even the name that I used on BCP as well when submitting. So we've got Bellicor, Shalaxi Hellbane, Grant and Clean One with Endless Gift, Scarbrand. That's all four characters, just four monsters, plain and simple. And then I have three other data sheets in the rest of the army. You've got one unit of Plague Bearers, three units of Fiends, squads of three units of three Screamers. Plain and simple. I've got a lot of speed in there, decent chunk of OC, decent chunk of -1 tick coming out of the Fiends to protect my monsters a little bit. Lots of trading potential, up and down pretty much the things that I need to every single turn. And yeah, everything we already know about Incursion, all the tricks and tips that just work insanely well for passive scoring, and the monster combination does a lot of killing.
Yeah, it does. I mean, Shalaxi Scarbrand kill most things that they touch.
Yeah.
Um, Be'lakor can do the work when he wants to, and the Guru can muck about when he needs to as well. And I feel like this is a list that you and me have kind of been working on since at least LGT. Like we had conversations about this type of list, and um, we both have had variations of it. It's what I took, in my run up last year with all my events, world championships. You've been running, even with excess being around, you just decided, nope, not doing it, sticking on the incursion. So you are Mr. Incursion, I think, at this point, in my eyes anyway. But so run us through your general and game plan that you kind of had. So what went in deep strike pretty much every game, and how were you kind of, the general game plan before adapting it to the matchup itself?
hmm So, um, everyone that I've played against probably knows this. My deployment doesn't change very often with Incursion. So it's very set what unit I'm putting on first. I don't have any infiltrators, no scouters, so it's pretty simple. There's only a few armies in the game that changes against how I set up. So Deep Strike, always Scarbrand and one squad of Screamers. The plan with the one squad of Screamers, in case I need to 6-inch Deep Strike them somewhere later in game when I want to up and down other stuff, I keep them in reserve and just have them there to go do an action somewhere. Even with a 9-inch Deep Strike, it's not terrible. And then Scarbrand, generally for the 6-inch Deep Strike to go charge something, or Rapid Ingress, he's insanely good with now as well. To be honest, with the Ingress, he always has been insanely good. Um, it's more against things like combat armies when you ingress him in to protect against someone who's come to land to kill one of your big monsters, and you have him next to them all of a sudden to heroic in and be like, you didn't expect him to be there, did you? Um, yeah, it can be quite frustrating for people when they're going to like all out to kill Shalaxi and suddenly Scarbrand just turns up next to her. So yeah, that's like the general principle. And then deployment, it was obviously on UKTC boards for a lot of it. I played 3 out of my 6 games on UKTC boards. So I guess half and half. I got a good even split. Um, and certainly on the UKTC matchups, it was more I'm going to push Guo into the middle. I'm going to push Shalaxi and Bellicor and some Plague Bearers or Fiends, whatever gets there with appropriate advanced rolls and stuff, onto another objective. And that will be the flank that you can't really reach. When Bellicor or Shalaxi are there, most people don't want to go the hell near it anyway. And because the Fiends are there or Plague Bearers are there, later on, people don't go near it. I can then up and down Shalaxi and Bellicor and go to the other side of the table. And then they do what they want. Or near enough do what they want. So that was kind of general game plan. Again, we know that from the Grand Clean One's resilience, a lot of people don't bother targeting him, only do it when he's the absolutely only thing they can target, thanks to Bellicor's aura. And so, yeah, it's one of those armies that is very much I'm dictating the flow of things. And I'm dictating when you shoot me, I'm dictating when I attack you, what's getting attacked a lot of the time because of the close deep strikes. So it's very hard to play around for a lot of lists.
Yeah, so I mean, it is like at this point we've been playing this detachment for a year and a half, close to 2 years, like before the other 4 came along. So I think we know what it does. It did get a little bit of a boost in freshness with the change to Denizens, which I kind of understate how huge that change is. It is massive. Being able to now just drop anywhere on the board 6 inches away and charge with anything is just absolutely ridiculous. And also drop a greater demon down 6 inches away, drop some stuff within 6 inches of said monster and charge all of it is massive, and in my opinion better than the 3-inch deep strike. So
100%.
yeah, so like how often did you like use new denizens? Because I still have not used it yet. It is the one thing that kind of keeps dragging me from Plague Legion or Excess into Incursion again, because I really want to use it before it potentially gets nerfed, because I don't think that's going to last too long.
So often, I think the way I like to play the list, certainly on UKTC maps, it ends up keeping Shadow relatively frequently, because when the monsters are there and the threat of the monsters are there, the threat of the counterpunch from 3 squads of Fiends and 2 squads of Screamers starting on the board is there as well. A lot of the time, people don't want to bring their resources out just to lose them. And so they don't try and stop you from taking the objectives. Certainly, the armies that have those valuable resources and have to use valuable stuff to take them off you. So they don't bother, and then you get the shadow. Then I don't really need the stratagem. But where the stratagem came into impact is when I don't get the natural shadow against armies like Chaos Knights. So, for example, my round 5 was Chaos Knights, and they will push out against you because they're all as tough as each other. So it doesn't really matter. You're losing one knight, who cares? Um, and that was the game where the 6-inch deep strike really proved huge. Bellicor deep striking 6 away and having Shalaxi near him, and each of them charging into a War Dog, a big deal. On killing one rather than killing two, so it definitely makes a big difference in certain matchups. And obviously, we know about deep striking Scarbrand. You and I had conversations before that tournament. Obviously, I'm very glad that I ended up going with Scarbrand. But the other variants of that list had, instead of Scarbrand, Keeper of Secrets, which is much closer to what you were running, or instead of Scarbrand, 6 Blood Crushers with a Skullmaster, which I also liked, and they massively benefit from the 6-inch deep strike and rapid engage, just like Scarbrand does. The difference, what made me go with Scarbrand was I wanted an attack dog that I can use instead of Shalaxi to do just as much punching, which is exactly what he did. So that when I lose the threat of Shalaxi, I don't lose as much hitting power.
Yeah.
in case she does pop. Um, which proved obviously ended up doing really well. So it worked, but it's not gonna like stop me from trying blood crushes at another point. I definitely want to give them a go.
Yeah. I think we have so many conversations really about this, but um we both, I think, it's funny how many times we will have the same idea at the same time. Like one of us will send each other a list or an idea, and we'll go, "I've been thinking literally about that." And I can't remember who spoke about it first. It might have been you, but when I saw the 6 inch deep strike, the first thing that popped into my head, two things: Scarbrand, Blood Crushers, right? Both of them love the 6 inch deep strike anywhere on the board. And I just love the idea of six Blood Crushers if your opponent gives you the space, which they can do, pinning their backfield in with the six Blood Crushers while pushing with Fiends and Chilaxi. I just think that's really like that sandwich is just so hard to stop. So I
Yeah,
again just can't understate how stupid that 6 inch like Denizens is, because Grey Knight's got it, but only certain things can use it. And at first I was a bit like, well, that's annoying that now they have it. And then when they changed ours, I was like, wow, that's insanely good.
yeah,
Um, the fact that it's got no restrictions on it now is just, yeah, it's silly.
yeah.
So yeah, it's immense. So I genuinely think it is now the best stratagem for even, but like Realm of Chaos is obviously good. I'll be Downy, but I just think Denizens is by far our best stratagem across all of the detachments. I don't think there is a better stratagem, bar maybe Thieves of Pain, but Asterix Acts that's going to get smashed into the ground very soon. So right, your 6 games. Give us a brief run through of all of them. And obviously key points, what you're against, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah. So, go through the first one. I was up against Ruben's Ultramarines. This was Gladius Ultramarines. The mission was, I've got it here, search and destroy deployment, linchpin with raised banners as a mission rule. So, very interesting thing about Beachhead. I guess get this out of the way before I go on to the games. Adam Shepherd Jones, the organizer. He's been trying to get me to this event since he's been running it, and for one reason or another, every single year I've been putting it off. There's been some kind of personal issues that's got in the way, family issues that's got in the way, and this year I was like, right, I'm not going to put it off. Paulie messaged me about getting a ticket. Cool, let's go. I'm doing Beachhead. And he even said this during the award ceremony. He's like, I've spent 5 years trying to get this guy to the event, and he comes along and he wins 6 games. So that was very funny. But yeah, my first time at Beachhead, it was a really cool convention. It's a lot of fun. In the middle of my second game, I saw a Dalek stroming the room, roaming across the room, and just got distracted and had to record a video of it. There were dudes dressed as like stormtroopers and Jedi walking around. It was wicked. Um, so yeah, my first game, linchpin and raised banners on search and destroy deployment. So linchpin's a really interesting one where you have to control your home point to get your efficient primary points, which I managed to do all game. This was on in score terms not a very close game. I won 100-28 um, against
Wow.
Gladius Ultramarines, but it was
That's a
more.
big win.
Yeah, very big win. It wasn't a scoreline based on like gotchas or anything. It wasn't based on my opponent having bad luck, me having good luck. It was purely he did not have the units to cope with my monsters, even with the +1 to wound. His army was very much focused around he needs to gun down and fight one monster at a time. And I knew that going into it. And he needs to focus his whole army to do that. Once he does that, even if he does kill that one monster, I'm then destroying basically his whole army by charging it all, and there's not much he can do about it. Wasn't exactly what happened because I think Ruben made a bit of a mistake on his deployment and he set up quite spread out, probably because he underestimated some of the resilience of the monsters, particularly with Shalaxi starting on the table. So he spreads out quite a lot, isn't able to kill Shalaxi, is able to do a tiny bit of damage to Guo, but nowhere near like 3 or 4 wounds for shooting like 5 units at him. So really not what was expected. And then Shalaxi, Duo, Bellicor, Scarbrand drops in as well. We come in that one turn. We've got Fiends charging, we've got Screamers charging. I've got some action secondaries going on. I was just killing a lot, and I ended up with 15 primary points every turn. I ended up scoring pretty much all of my secondaries. Just played super efficiently for the whole game and ended up with 100 points. It was only in the first turn where I didn't score one secondary because I drew Bring It Down as one of them, and my opponent literally had one vehicle, which Scarbrand ended up killing in turn 4. Other than that, I didn't even bother trying to attack it. Um, I think, other than that game, a lot of my other games, I didn't score 100 points in any of the others. I spent the other games in some turns basically sacrificing secondaries and purposely sacrificing secondaries so I could get extra CP and just going, I'm gonna rip you apart as much as I can this turn. Forget about doing actions because I don't want to have to do an action with fiends. I'd rather just go kill another unit or something and sacrifice secondaries for CPs, but just obliterate my opponent so that they simply cannot recover. That didn't need to be the case in that game because the monsters were super efficient and they killed everything they needed to, and so did fiends. So screamers could still go around and do actions. So on to second game, Tyranids. This one was someone who'd won their first game. Lovely dude to play against. There was an 18-year-old guy named Mycroft. And he was there with his dad and gave me memories of me going to my early tournaments with my dad. So he was lovely to chat to, lovely to play against. But it was Nid's invasion fleet, and I think anyone who I've played against who's run Nid's invasion fleet, Nid's in general, to be honest, against demons, it feels like a very poor matchup for the Nids. Pretty much whatever detachment they're running against Incursion, especially. Um, and simply because they just lack the profiles to kill the monsters. Um, and that was very evident from early game, and then when I really got in his face with the monsters late game, became even more obvious. It was Burden of Trust, the mission, and
a burden.
Yeah, so Burden combining against Invasion Fleet Nids that was pretty monster heavy, trying to take objectives off of my monsters when I'm just playing the passive game, not really attacking him. He's too far away, and he's having to try and shoot through up 4-up Invan, 4-up Fiona Payne, Great and Clean one with lethal hits on his attacks, but he's all wounding on 5s. It's not really an ideal situation for the Nids at all. He's not got the speed to be able to take objectives off anyone, because by this point he's come out to try and do it in turn 1 and turn 2, and I shoot him off with Bellicor and Shalaxi. Bellicor and Shalaxi early parts of the game did not go into combat with anything. And then first 2 turns they didn't go into combat. Third turn, eventually, when I decided to bring Scarbrand in, we had our hammer turn and we picked up so much. I think Bellicor, Shalaxi, and Scarbrand each picked up a monster in that turn. Guo even made a Exocrine -1 toughness, had him and some fiends charge into it and kill it, which was quite efficient. Screamers were super efficient against big things as well in all of my vehicle and monster matchups. And in turn 4, I scored 22 primary, and I've never scored so well on Burden. I don't think I scored 50 primary on Burden, which I thought was like impossible.
It's not possible, but you have to have a good game to do it.
Exactly.
Very good game to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I ended up having one of those games, I guess, whilst again sacrificing some certain secondary points to just go for the kill in that turn when we did. So it finished not a super close one again, 91-20.
Wow, jeez.
Yeah. So that's what we're seeing, a theme here of what happens when Incursion demons decide to play the passive game and just go, I'm going to sit on these objectives. I've got my Bellicor, or you can't shoot me. I'm going to up and down. I'm going to go where I want. I'm going to kill what I want. And there's not really a lot you can do to stop it. I was telling you before that Haristo from my team, he likes to call it the Pokemon list, and that's why the monsters have been named after Pokemon, because I am choosing them and I'm choosing when they attack, what they attack. They're
Yeah, I
coming out.
remember
They might as well
when
be.
I played him at Coventry, and he was obviously on Nid, so I think he got some PTSD from that as well. He's like, I hate this matchup. I can't kill anything. He like sent into the keeper, and she just went, "Nah, I'm not dying." And he was like, "Oh no, I don't like this." And then she'll actually just go, "Nah, die, 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 die." So yeah, he does not like incursion whatsoever.
The funny thing is, I had very first time I played him, the only time I played him actually, I had exactly the same game. And I just full sent Shalaxi up and downed her into two Carnifexes and Old One Eye and killed them all. And and then he basically turned his whole army. This was before Tyrannifexes were like really popular. I don't think he had any Tyrannifexes. But he had three X Queens and two Maliceptors, and they all turned to shoot her. Hive Tyrant shot her, charged her. She lived through all of it. She lived with like 6 wounds. And then Haristo at the end of it was pretty much like, right, this is my turn. I need to kill her. After she goes and kills the Carnifexes, he was like, I'm going to turn my whole army to shoot her. If I don't kill her, it's basically game. And he knew that from the get go. But it's so funny that, and it's so unfortunate for the Nids that that is the case. But like, I guess just the power of the monsters' killiness, our monsters being able to kill theirs, theirs not being able to kill ours. It's just very unfortunate for the matchup.
Yeah, they can't deal with. I learned this very fast. They can't deal with keepers, but keepers will eventually deal with them.
Yeah,
And Chilaxi just rips them apart. And then even Be'lakor has a good go at some of the monsters. So
yeah,
yeah,
Exocrines will have a nice go at for sure.
yeah. He doesn't like Tyrannifexes, but then even Chilaxi can sometimes have a bit of an off day against a Tyrannifex if they just make too many 5-ups, and then they got a blank. Have they got a blank?
They got a blank, yeah. So what
Yeah.
I did against Mycroft's, he had two Tyrannifexes. Each time that Shalaxi went into one, she was typically going using draft to make herself AP4, put him on a
Yeah.
6-up save only, and then he's got to trigger his Fiona Pains. He was triggering his Fiona Pains and blanking, but she was getting lucky and not failing a roll with the spear.
Nice.
So it was just like, okay, you've got five, you're going to blank one, you've got five other 6-up saves to make. Well, you didn't roll any sixes. Okay, that's like 30 Fiona Pains.
It's like good luck. Deal with that. And they can't
Exactly.
deal with that.
And very
Nice.
similar situation with Scarbrand as well when he jumps in. My god, when Scarbrand gets bracketed and he goes into anything, it's like it's doomed.
Mate, I had him killed with Phil No Pains in one game. This was not even last year, year before. He killed two what's the 15 OC ones? Emissaries?
Yes, yeah. No
No, two emissaries in 2 turns because he was bracketed and he just went, nah, die, die. It's just like
Yeah,
Jesus
he's
Christ. So
nuts. He's absolutely crazy.
hmm
So that was going to again a lovely game, and I ended up chatting a lot with Mycroft and his dad after the game as well, and just getting to know them a bit better. So that was cool. Third game. At this point, I'm happy with myself. I've had two big wins, but I'm looking at it going, I've been lucky. I've probably been lucky on pairings, right? To get it so far. Gladius Marines, it's not the worst Marine matchup for me. Invasion Fleet Nids. Nids is generally easy for us. Next, I've got Black Templars. And I have lost against Templars. One of my few tournament losses with Incursion before Beachhead was against Templars. So I was pessimistic going into the game. Like, what am I going to do? And then I just had an amazing game because I used my brain and actually started just going like, rather than just worrying about what the opponent can do, like you normally do, Byron, focus on what you can do and ignore what the opponent can do. Not necessarily like completely ignore it, but I knew what the biggest threat was, and that was a Land Raider packed full of Helbrecht and some Sword Brethren. So, like, cool, I know to ignore that. I need to stay away from that Land Raider. It was a Land Raider Redeemer. It had some other stuff in there as well, but I basically planned to force that unit, the smaller unit that was in there, which was some Blade Guard with a Judicia. Basically, force either that unit or Helbrecht and his Sword Brethren out of that Redeemer to go stop me getting points or go get points early on by deploying a refuse flank on that side of the table. And then I had quite possibly the most insane lucky turn of shooting coming from the combination of Bellicor and Shalaxi. So my opponent Luca at this point had started the game picking his anti-psyker vow because he wanted to basically nullify my shooting. So he's got a 4-up invine against psychic attacks, and I think he gets a Fiona Pain. No Fiona Pain, but he gets anti-psych.
Anti-psych for 4+, which is absolutely
anti-psych
grim.
combat, which is mad because you're putting against 3 of my 4 monsters. You're putting Blade Guard from winning on 6s to 4s.
Yep.
Which is nuts. And
it is
the
nuts.
amount of potential damage output they have, plus you've got Dev Wounds on your Judicia. So I needed to kill this unit, right?
Yes.
And I wasn't. Part of me said that it was cocky of me to make this move, to think that I would kill all of them. Honestly, I didn't think I would kill all of them. But they basically moved out of they come out of their Land Raider. They wanted to put some pressure on an objective where there were just some Fiends and Screamers near it. He went first. He does that. I up and down Shalaxi and Bellicor. Only just put them both within 18, Shalaxi within 12, so that she can get both her shooting attacks. Bellicor just within 18. Shalaxi toes onto the objective by doing that. And she's on the objective, there's some Fiends on the objective, all of it's in Bellicor range. He hadn't put his Land Raider far forward enough to pressure with Helbrecht's unit to go into either Shalaxi or Bellicor. So I'm like, okay, if I charge these Blade Guard, Shalaxi's in trouble. I'm just going to have to shoot them. Mate, she spiked. She not just spiked.
I love it when she does that.
She not just spiked a little bit. She spiked like an absolute mofo, and her and Bellicor combined shot the whole unit dead.
Character Judicia included.
Judicia included. I'm not joking. It wasn't even like my Shalaxi's spike on the sustained was good. She rolled 4 shots and 2 of them hit on 6s. The other 2 hit as well. So that's a good spike. But then on top of that, he didn't make an invulnerable. Like Shalaxi shot, he did not pass a single 4-up invulnerable, which was just like already killing majority of the unit. Her whip did whiff a little bit. She only wounded twice with the whip. But then when Bellicor opened up, he rolled an insane amount of Dev Wounds as well. And they don't get a save against that. And he was like, I could pop the Fiona Pain stratagem here, but it's probably not worth doing when I've only got like a Judicia and 1 Blade Guard. So he just killed them off because he wanted the CP for his next turn. It was mad. But that was a typical like lucky but hilarious play at the same time. Like there isn't even a Judicia and a couple of Blade Guard there to threaten Shalaxi anymore. We just killed it. On another day that doesn't happen, and maybe Shalaxi I kill a few of them and Shalaxi gets charged by them the following turn. But again, it wouldn't have been a problem because Helbrecht's unit were too far. So then it was Purge as well. That being the only kill that I got first turn was a big deal because it got me the 4 points. Luca didn't get any points because I didn't allow anything to wasn't in a position to be killed first turn. And then for the rest of the game, again, I scored 50 primary and I was sacrificing certain secondaries that I was drawing to get CPs just so that I could either ingress in his turn or interrupt in his turn. it happened quite a lot, and that just probably was why I just considered myself in that game and for the whole tournament just to be really on form, sacrificing secondaries for counter punches.
Yeah.
Uh, so we finished basically with Helbrecht's unit never making it into combat. Um, the only thing they got into combat with was, again, because I dictated it, was the Giro sat in the middle in a turn where he drew areas and island, bring it down.
Brilliant.
And I was like, okay, you're going to have to try and kill him, but he's probably not going to die just to this one unit. And then some Fiends plus Guo plus Shalaxi jumped into them the following turn, absolutely rinsed them. And we finished the game kind of like mathing it out pretty much. We ended up in a situation where Guo was sat in the middle and he had Storm Hostile. That was the only one he could get to. So we kind of just did like, well, Luca just went, I'm going to advance a tank onto it outside of his engagement range. I'm going to advance some infiltrators onto it. That's literally all I've got, and then you're going to kill it all the next turn. So the game got to that point. But it was just an insane score from my side, and Luca was trying to score the best he could by the end of it, having lost so much early on. We finished 86 to 50, and
Nice.
that 50 points was my second highest opponent score of the weekend. And my last game was my highest opponent score, which we'll get onto later.
Mm-hmm.
So then day one's finished. I've won 3 games. We're going to the hotel. I'm absolutely chuffed, looking at what I could be playing against next. And I've come up against Legion of Excess.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this briefly. So you went up
Yeah.
against Legion of Excess. You played a guy called George, right?
Yep.
So George actually, funny enough, messaged me not long after this. So funny enough, I was on the south coast as well that same weekend, but I was doing a small RTT
Mm-hmm.
because I'd forgot to buy a beachhead ticket and then they sold out. So I managed to get a beachhead ticket, a South Coast RTT ticket literally the night before. So I thought, fuck it, I'll drive down and whatever. And funny enough, this is actually his local haunt. So one of the guys there was, or it was a couple of guys were talking to me about the channel and just saying how much they liked it. A couple of them mentioned you. And one of the guys said, "Oh, I actually got turned on to this by another guy that plays here, and he's been running Legion of Access recently." And I said, "Oh, okay, cool." I was like, "Oh, like who is it? I might know him." And he was like, "Oh, George. I think his last name's Weston."
Western.
Um, yeah, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't know who that is, but that's cool." And it was really nice to hear that someone's spreading word of mouth. So that's awesome. And then you had mentioned literally the same night, or it might have been the next morning. I can't remember if you'd messaged during the night or the morning. We were like, "Oh, I've got excess," and I was like, "Okay, you'll be fine." Like, what is the list? And we looked at it, like, "Okay, just go into it. You know what it does. Have a go." And then, funny enough, I hadn't clicked onto who it was until he had messaged me going, "Oh, like." Explained who he was. I was like, "Oh, that's funny. Your name was mentioned." He was like, "Oh, I play Byron." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's quite cool." So yeah, so George is a watcher of the channel, which thank you, and it was really interesting to me kind of hearing about this guy, and then you playing into him, and then him messaging me. So it was all quite an interesting little thing. But yeah, so he was on Legion of Excess, right? The hotness that only the bandwagon jumpers have been playing, me included.
I like to call it the not bandwagon jumper. I like to call it flavor of the month demons.
It is. It's definitely a flavour of the month. It's a flash in the pan because it's about to get thrown out that fucking frying pan faster than anything. But
Yeah, George was a top bloke, lovely to play against, and I actually found out that I knew one of his mates, Zach Hawks, plays Tau, and he was playing on the table next to us, and we kind of got chatting a lot, and he told me that he was a fan of the channel and had watched your videos, watched our videos together, and he knew who I was through that. So I was a bit like,
oh, nice.
"Wow, this is strange. Like this
It's
is
a
a
weird feeling, isn't it? It's a
yeah,
really weird. I've been doing it a while now, and I still, when someone goes, "Oh, like I watch what you do, I know what you," and I'm like, "Oh, like I'm more used to it now." But sometimes, especially when I get really nice comments, it's like, "Oh, that's weird. I don't know who you are, but you know me," and it's like, "Oh God, okay." Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a strange feeling that you get used to, but even sometimes it catches you off a little bit.
yeah, for sure. So this was one of the games that was on the Gothic terrain board, more of like a GW style setup,
Yep.
um, but less like bogged up them in the middle GW style setup. It wasn't as bogged up as the GW ones.
Mhm.
This was Crucible deployment, Terraform mission, and I was concerned to an extent because it was Terraform, and I wasn't thinking I was going to get a lot of Terraforms off because he's going to rush the middle objectives. He did it pretty much as I wanted him to, not as I expected him to. So there's the way that I would have played it as excess, and we talked about it afterwards as well. And there's the way he did play it, which is how I wanted him to play it, so that I could get the best result I needed. Um, he basically spread himself too thin between all of the objectives, and that kind of just allowed me to carry on what I was doing, like pick the one that I normally go for, try and keep that all game, ignore the other one, but send enough stuff there so that he has to keep, you know, keep on it, keep him honest on it. Whereas he wasn't really able to do the same to me. He wasn't able to push enough to my objective that I wanted to keep me honest on it. So I just ended up keeping it for the whole game, and we had a bit of a fight in the middle. Um, it was really fun to play. It was interesting to play against the stratagems of XS. He didn't actually use the Shadow Battle Shock all game because for most of it he didn't have Shadow in the middle. His Shadow was purely coming off of his keepers. We had a really strange interaction because of the terrain layouts early on in the game where I had some screamers go onto an objective on the corner I normally want to go for, and went and terraformed it. And he had a keeper that was trying to shoot them and charge him. And because of the way the terrain was and like the way it was structured on the bases and also the floors, basically the keeper couldn't like fit underneath. It was really weird. So the keeper wasn't able to charge some screamers because it can't actually technically be placed there. I didn't think it could, and I was like, George, just give it a go. Honestly, see how far you can place your keeper. You might be able to get it in engagement range. We gave it a go. He could fought them as normal. That was the idea. It was one of those like by intent moments. It was very clear from him that he was trying to charge these screamers, and I was like, just see if you can do it. I'm not going to be an asshole and remove this screamer so
No.
that you can't. You know, it's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's that moment we looked at it and went, "This is a really unfortunate terrain layout for some armies, isn't it?" It's like, yeah, we started talking about how someone had played Chaos Knights and his models couldn't actually fit,
Jam.
so his models couldn't get on objectives because of the way the terrain was around the objectives. It's like, what are Chaos Knights supposed to do if they can't get on the objectives? Um, so yeah, the game itself was very interesting points wise. I kind of let him have some more early primary than I did, but again, as I mentioned, for like counter punch purposes, I was cycling stratagems, trying to get more CPs, just making sure that I was keeping him honest every time he wanted to go into something and would consider fighting last. Um, I would always have a heroic available with a big monster if he was charging into my fiends or screamers. And I think I just played everything really on point. I targeted one flank, got rid of that one flank, then I targeted the middle, got rid of the stuff in the middle, left him on one flank until we got to a stage where I had almost tabled him. Then I just started kind of pushing and going for the big kills.
Yeah.
Um, the keepers on his side performed really well as I thought they would. Um, Scarbrand actually struggled to get rid of one of them. Took him like 3 rounds of combat to kill a keeper, which
Yeah,
it
they're
wouldn't.
tough. They're very tough.
Exactly, and but the good thing was I had fiends nearby, so it was very tough for the keeper to hurt Scarbrand as well, even with the
Yeah.
rerolls. The -1 to hit does surprising work in that aspect. Um, Bellicor just went around picking up demonettes. He didn't. I don't think he had an epitome in his list. I'm trying to think. No, no, because we again that was another thing we talked about, and he said he didn't want to put a lot of value on Thieves of Pain. Similarly to conversations you and I have had, where I actually like to use my demonettes for killing stuff, he wanted to do the same. Um, it was just unfortunate that they came up against Bellicor of all the monsters who can actually like sweep them pretty efficiently. Shoot,
Bellator with a combination of betraying shades and then sweeping with the blade of shadows just picks up things like demonettes like they're nothing.
exactly, and that's pretty much what happened. They went to charge him. It was like a 8 or 9 inch charge. They failed it, and then he just killed them the following turn. Um, so yeah, it was a really good game, fun game. I got to see Shalaxi fighting things that don't have characters, and she's not very efficient into them, especially not when they're fiends with the -1 to hit.
Yes.
But then
That's
on
what
the flip side,
XS XS kind of fixes that because she can just re-roll.
yeah,
But yeah, in Incursion she hates it.
yeah, for sure. And but then on the flip side, those incursion, those excess fiends hitting on fours with rerolls rather than threes with rerolls because my fiends are nearby and they're only on 4 attacks a model. Those 6 fiends are not doing much to Shalaxi at all, um, even with all the rerolls. So it was a very much a tactical game of me using my fiends well, me using screamers to do secondaries, and using monsters, using the efficiency I have with the monsters to kill his stuff. And I needed to make sure I killed his keepers early and then fiends. Absolutely needed to like prioritize my targeting. Um, and because of what he put forward first turn, similarly to what I did against Luca the game before, the Black Templars, I just used Bellicor and Shalaxi and Guo's shooting to clear a lot of stuff. Like the generally speaking, their shooting was enough to get rid of his 2 squads of Seekers that charged up at me early on. Um, and this was the first game in the tournament that I went first. I really didn't want to go first in this one out of all of them. I absolutely wanted to go second, so I was nervous from the get go. But the way George played, I think, kind of played into my hands a little bit. And again, we spoke about it afterwards and what he could have done differently. So yeah, it was a really fun game.
Nice.
So that
Very
finished
nice.
on the score at 82 to 38.
Another big win. Another big
Yeah.
win.
So now we're moving on to round 5. This is against Chaos Knights. So this is against a guy, Michael Morel, who I had played at LGT, the LGT where I went 5-0.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he was running Iron Hands at the time. And it was a really, really close game that we had. And I think he was my closest game of that LGT. But it was obviously 9th edition rather than 10th. This was my first time playing him in 10th, and he'd pivoted to Chaos Knights. Going into it, supply drop mission. I'm already worried. The fact that it's against Chaos Knights and Mass OC. But
Yeah.
I think what gave me a bit of hope is he had one big night and it wasn't just 13 or 14 war dogs. I think 13 or 14 war dogs cause any demon army a lot of
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. A big night. You actually kind of go when they've got a big night because it just removes so much of that potential OC they can throw at you.
Exactly, and you can one tap it with Shalaxi or Scarbrand pretty comfortably.
Exactly.
Um, so I had that in the back of my mind, and I actually ended up, funnily, by the end of the game, one tapping him with Bellicor because Shalaxi died very early on in this game. But yeah, it was a good game. It was supply drop, low scoring by the end of it because of how we ended up rolling the objectives. And I'm glad we rolled the objectives the way we did. We had it so that the middle one was staying for the whole game. So it just ended up in being a big slog in the middle, where I had Great Unclean One rock up to the middle. Him and Bellicor were the ones that survived the entire game. I think Scarbrand survived actually as well. But the biggest, so I briefly mentioned my first turn, where he went first in this one. He came forward onto all three objectives with 3 knights. I up and down Bellicor and Shalaxi. They each 6-inch charged into 2 separate knights. Bellicor actually failed his one, but it was okay because it was, I think it was a brigand. Yeah, I think it was a brigand on that flank. So he failed his charge into a brigand, and some fiends had followed up the charge with him, with Bellicor, and they didn't fail the charge into the brigand, so I at least locked it up. So I wasn't going to be able to shoot a lot unless it wanted to shoot his melter, for example, at one of the big guys. And there's plague bearers behind the wall as well, towing onto that objective because I know I'm going to get a charge onto this brigand, and I've got enough OC to out OC him, but failing the charge with Bellicor wasn't nice. Shalaxi, on the other hand, makes her charge into a carnivore, which is important because she kills that carnivore, takes that objective back off him. There was only one, which was on the far end, which was the second objective, the first objective that was going to be disappearing, which was the one that he was on. And I was okay with that. I contemplated up and downing Great Unclean One during that turn and getting the 6-inch charge through the wall onto that knight, which he'd actually gone onto the objective in the way he did to try and tempt me to get that 6-inch charge. But I didn't do it. I left Great Unclean One in the middle and was just like, I'm not falling for this. I did contemplate for a solid 10 minutes on my clock. Was like, you know what? This is big demons versus big knights. We'll be all right for time. I got time here. So that happens. Shalaxi kills one. I knocked another one down to 1 wound with a combination of fiends, Guo shooting, and screamers in combat. And it was really frustrating. A couple of others got knocked down to 10 wounds on one, 7 wounds on another. And then the following turn, he kills Shalaxi. But he kills Shalaxi. Before he kills Shalaxi, because it's turn 2, I ingress Scarbrand in behind a wall where he's not moved anything to be able to see him. He's not going to be able to kill him. But the way he's moved, because I landed him next to Bellicor, it's 6 away. It's directly behind a wall. He can't see him, and he's, as soon as Scarbrand moves out, he's got a 7-inch charge into 2 War Dogs, and there's nothing that Mike could do about that. So he was picking up 2 War Dogs the next turn, and Mike knew full well that was happening. And Shalaxi stood there as well. So he's moving his stuff about. He's trying to target Shalaxi and Bellicor to try and kill them both. He severely underestimated what it would take to kill Shalaxi, and it took basically all of the knights to kill Shalaxi, including the biggest one. So then Bellicor and Scarbrand are there pretty much undamaged. And then the next turn I went and killed 6 War Dogs. And
game over at that point, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So in that turn, I sadly didn't draw Bring It Down because my god, that would have been amazing. But I drew Storm Hostile and Marked for Death, and he picked the only 3 models that were left alive was the ones that he picked for Marked for Death, and I just ended up discarding it for a CP and was like, whatever, it's fine. You can have your Marked for Death. I'll do another card next turn, and I needed the CP for the following turn because I wanted to reroll 1s on my saves, just to guarantee keeping Scarbrand alive. But Scarbrand went and killed 2. Bellicor killed 1. Screamers flew over the 1 wound 1, killed it.
Brilliant.
3 squads of Screamers charged into 1, killed it. And a combination of Fiends and Guo charged into another one and shot it and killed it. So it was all just combo central, and I killed 6 War Dogs. And then eventually, with all of those monsters still alive, I actually said at the beginning of the term, it was really funny that I said to Mike, I'm trying to kill 6 this turn. I'll be happy if I kill 4, because I knew about the 1 wound one. It's like, that's going to be one of the 4. If I kill 4, I'll be happy because there's always a chance that Scarbrand fails his 7-inch rerollable. And those would be the 2 that I'd miss killing. I should kill the others. And I killed all 6, and then Mike just came round to me and gave me a hug. Was like, "Mate, you said you were going to kill 6, and you fucking killed 6."
Brilliant.
So yeah, that was a really good game. Finished because it was supply drop, and I had to kind of forego early primaries.
Yeah.
Finished 70 to me, 35 to Mike. But he kind of got his early scores, and that was it. Because
Yeah.
after I killed 6, there's not a lot he can do anymore.
Run out of steam. Yeah.
Exactly. And then
So hold on. Who,
game,
who did you play in round 6, Byron?
I played the famous Stephen Box in round 6. And
Oh,
so, funny thing,
revenge. Revenge.
100% revenge, because we played literally the weekend before ITT, and I was running Legion of Excess, and Steve was running exactly the same army that he ran at the ITT. I remember going to the ITT and saying to my teammates, I will take any army but those Custodes with Excess, because Custodes Excess is not a good match. It's winnable for the Excess, but you have to play absolutely out of your skin.
You have to have a good. You have to have
And
a good game.
exactly, and against a good Custodes player, which Steve absolutely is, you're not going to have that good game. Unfortunately for the XS side, it was an absolute battering. I lost 20-0 in WTC points, which was always going to be the case once he picks up the keepers. Right? The keepers are the only saving grace in that matchup. But now going into the Incursion side of that matchup, when I started going through what the army could do, Stephen had a lot more respect for Incursion than he did for XS. And I think it was Terraform mission on sweeping engagement, swift action, mission rule. So basically, like mission 1 of UKTC pack. Um, and it was interesting to see Steve's deployment of it, because he had to respect the up and down and potential speed of my Shalaxi and Bellicor combo. He deployed quite defensively from compared to what I expected. Um, but I think his biggest hitters, I learned from the game against XS, his biggest hitting unit against my monsters in general was 6 Venatari. And he put those 6 Venatari.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? I would have. Has it got not got wardens or guardian or guards?
Guards, no. Wardens, he had 2
Wardens.
squads. So he had 2 squads of
Venator.
4 Wardens with a Blade Champ. They don't hit the hardest against our monsters.
What detachment is he running?
Shield Host.
So he's lethal 5s, right?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
I've had those wardens look at Bellicor. I mean, it doesn't say a lot, but look at Bellicor like he's nothing, and actually tear a chunk out of Shalaxi as well.
Yeah.
So
So they took a chunk out of Shalaxi, but not compared to the Venatari. The Venatari like pick up whichever one they go into.
really,
What mate is 6 Venatari with 5 attacks a model, Lance. So you probably go sustained rather than lethals, because they're all wounded on 4s. But against me, Box played the safe card and did go for lethals against the
yeah,
excess stuff. Um, and I got very lucky. Shalaxi got very lucky against those 6 Venatari. They should have picked her up. She survived on like 6 wounds. Actually, no, she survived on more than that. She survived on like 10 wounds because I barely failed any saves in Inferno Pains. I really spiked
right.
it. But as I said, she was lucky to survive that, and then in that game, interrupt and kill some Wardens. The Wardens most certainly would have finished her off, though, if she hadn't done that.
Yeah,
So I learned from that experience, and I knew I had to avoid those Venatari at all costs, and do my best to basically stay on the opposite end of the table because he started them on the board, which I didn't expect. He also started his 3-man Ventari on the board. Everything was on the board, nothing in reserve. So the only option for reserves he had was up and down with his 3 squads of Terminators, um, which is fine. It was a decent amount of up and down, and I still had to keep him honest. Still had to screen the backfield with either Plague Bearers or Fiends and Screamers as a combo. I think what really annoyed the Custodes pretty much every time they were fighting a monster, they were near Fiends, because of how I always play my Fiends. So he was hitting on 3s rather than 2s, and okay, the crits on 5s is good, but hitting on 2s, you're getting rid of 1 in 6 of that chance, you're making it 2 in 6 misses, and it just keeps the monsters alive a little bit longer, which I didn't have. I didn't have that usage of Fiends in excess because I absolutely have to use them for the damage output rather than just using them for the defense because
Yeah.
otherwise the army just lacks output, against Custodes particularly. What I was really good at against Steve was using the shooting combos of Bellicor, Shalaxi, and Guo to make him use his Filner Pains on his Wardens in the shooting phase. So the threat of Shalaxi, and admittedly told me afterwards that he thought that it was 6 shots. So when I was explaining it to him, I did mention Pavane as being D6 shots and that it wasn't blast,
Yeah.
but he, for some reason, we spoke about it afterwards, and he thought I'd said it was 6 shots, which was part of the reason why he used the Furna Pain. But then
Right.
also, at the same time, I said, okay, it is only D6 shots, but it's also sustained hit 3. And then he said, okay, so I made the right choice in using it. Because if he doesn't use that Furna Pain there and then, combined shooting of Shalaxi and Bellicor, I think, picks up
They
average like
rip
3
apart.
Wardens.
Yeah, they do hurt the unit.
Yeah.
They do
So
hurt that unit.
at that point, I'm killing 3 out of 4 because he's only got 4 plus the Blade Champ, and he's left with 1 in the Blade Champ. It's not much to have a 4 up for a pain on, so he made the right call in using it. The one where I think he didn't make the right call in using it, I had 2 CPE to interrupt with my Guo. He charged into the Guo with 3 Venatari and his Wardens, and Guo interrupted after the Venatari attack. They barely did anything. And he interrupted to try and hit the Wardens. And because I had the 2 CP to interrupt, I actually, I'm trying to remember now, did I actually use it? I don't think I did. But because he does his thing at the start of the fight phase, his Furna Pain, because the interrupt threat was there, I just saved the CP, but I made him use the Furna Pain because I have that 2 CP there for the interrupt on the Wardens. He fights with Venatari first. That's enough threat for him to just go, I'm going to use the Furna Pain. So it was one of those games. I made him use the Furna Pains without really them having any impact.
Yeah.
I don't think he rolled a single 4-up Furna Pain all game because when he used it on the first squad of Wardens, I just shot something else. And when he used it on the second squad, I didn't bother interrupting. So I think there was that mind games element to it with the Wardens where they ended up basically being Custodian Guard and not Wardens.
Yeah.
Or they benefited from their -1 to wound, but they didn't benefit from the Furna Pain at all. And then the Terminators were really good from his side, but they, again, once they start dropping, they drop like flies. And we had a really funny interaction with a Terminator on an objective. Got charged. It was squad of 2. Got charged by Fiends. I killed 1, and then the or no, squad of 3. Yeah, squad of 3 charged by Fiends. Killed 2. Shot 1, killed 1, charged 1, killed him. And there was 1 left. He failed his battle shock test. And he absolutely needed to shoot these Fiends rather than charge them because he was running out of assets. The only thing he could shoot them with was his 3 bikes, 2 bikes and a captain.
Yeah.
And he wanted those bikes to go charging to Guo. So he needs to shoot these Fiends. So he has to fall back that 1 Terminator. He's got a 50-50 to pass his Desperate Escape. and he fails it, Terminator just pops, and those bikes then shoot the fiends, leave one alive. The following turn, because it's shadow, I then pass my battle shock and heal that heal that fiend, and
Nice.
that fiend actually gets used to do some more secondaries for me later on in the game. And Duo still sat there at this point. He survived the bikes just about, um, and this was the same turn that Shalaxi was getting charged by Wardens and Terminators, and I ingressed Scarbrand just behind. And the look on Steve's face when I ingress Scarbrand, Bellicor is pretty much far back, like right on his deployment line, so that you can't get to him. Shalaxi's in front after we've shot some Terminators. And then he moves his stuff forward and Scarbrand's ingress is in, and he's like, I've got to roll a 5 on my charge with these Wardens to stop Scarbrand heroicing and then interrupting to kill them all. He rolls a 9 on his first charge, and Blade Champ gives a reroll on the charge. He purposely re-rolled that 9 into a 5, so Scarbrand just about couldn't heroic. It was insane. It was one of those funny games where it was like that moment was just like, I absolutely need a 5 or less to be able to charge Shalaxi so that Scarbrand can't come and fuck these guys. and he got it just about on the rerollable charge. But then it didn't really end up mattering because they couldn't kill Shalaxi, and then she killed them. There were a couple of moments where 4-up in ones go slightly more his way or go slightly less my way, and maybe he could have a better time of it. But we got to the stage where he only had 6 Venatari on the table by the end of my turn 3, and I went second. So it was very much after my turn 3, it was very much a one-sided game. And again, we were in that position of sacrificing secondaries so that I could maybe get higher point scoring cards later on. I didn't need 100 points. I didn't get 100 points. I got 92. But I was just pining for the win regardless. And it ended up 92-69. And I think that game really emphasized how much killing power the army can have when you have your go turn.
Yeah.
And the whole sacrificing secondaries is a common theme that I had across all of my games. I'm just going to have my go turn and kill loads. And there's not a lot the opponent can do to recover after that. And when you're practically tabling Custodes by the end of turn 3, leaving them with 6 Venatari only. Like, you've not only just won the game, you've smashed it. And then the following turn, to kill those 6 Venatari, I drew Marked for Death and I drew Engage. That's the only unit on the table. I'd already up and downed Bellicor and Shalaxi before drawing Marked for Death, and then I draw Marked for Death, and Steve's just like, man, I really, really could have done with you not drawing Marked for Death and maybe going and doing something else with those 2 monsters, but then they go and just shoot and charge into those Venatari and kill them all.
Nice.
So yeah, it was a really good game. Steve, lovely to play against as always. It was actually the 4th time we'd played, but the 2 times we played before ITT was before Vanguard Tactics being a thing, so a very long time ago. I think when he was starting out in the hobby, and it was when Battlefield Birmingham were events, and those were like a couple of his earliest tournaments, and we ended up playing each other. He beat me once, I beat him once. So we're fully on like an even record now, 2-2.
2-2.
Yeah.
Nice. That is a really, really big win. Very, very impressive scalp to take. And it just is a testament to how good you are as a player. So I think you should be incredibly proud of it. And when I found out you were playing him, I think you said, like, you in the group, you were like, oh, I went box, and I was like, I had my pom-poms out, and I was like, go get him. Considering I was literally come up to your table after you'd just lost him the week before. So I was even though it was probably not in my best interest for you to win, ranking wise, I still wanted you to really, really win and go get that 6-0. So I was really happy for you. Um, and just touching on it for the people that might be thinking, oh, like the whole point of this game is to score points, and 100% it is. You're talking like I am literally a person who will put point scoring over everything, but like yourself, and I guess a lot of good players will do it. Sometimes, you know, sacrificing short term is better for the long term. Giving up a secondary, being like, okay, here's a cleanse. I can get one cleanse. Is the 2 points worth it, or can I use the CP better next turn? Where because you're right, if you kill that CP allows you to kill an extra unit. That's one less unit your opponent has to score points with, which is going to, in turn, be better for you in the long run. So sometimes for people that might be thinking, oh, well, no, like if I need to score points, sometimes, like, okay, if you can get like a 6 on containment with 2 units, I'm going to do a lot. You don't give that up unless you really need the CP for something next turn.
Yep.
But if it's like a 2 on cleanse or like a mini engage or something like that, or a mini locus or something. Sometimes the CP is better. If you look at it and you think, actually, that will be the difference between me interrupting when I get counter charge next turn, because actually that counter being able to, interrupt, not counter charge, being able to interrupt. So if you're being able to interrupt and potentially kill a unit, might actually get you 5 points from primary in the next turn rather than losing that and then getting 2 points in engage. So it is very much a look. You have to think a turn ahead, but definitely a very good thing to think about in your games. Maybe take a second, look into that. So yeah, but
Yeah,
no, absolutely amazing performance, proving. I say proving. You don't need to prove it because anyone that knows the thing knows that Incursion is still really really good, and it is neck and neck with Excess. Excess has a better. I guess better record into a lot of matchups that Incursion might struggle a bit with, but Incursion has more, I feel like, get you out of jail type of abilities and stratagems. Um, and again, we're going to harp on about it, but I'm going to mention it again. Excess is getting nerfed, so and this is before it's been announced. Like, don't think this is we know. Like, this is before we actually know, but we know he's getting nerfed because logic and other bits. So incursion is definitely, I think, going to be the way to go again if you just want the generalization or you want to have good steady results. Um, incursion will always be reliable, right? And you can always, again, you know what you're getting from incursion and being able to dot across the board, be able to deep strike down, be able to get charges off of your monsters that are on one side of the board to the other the next turn is just invaluable, right?
yeah.
Completely invaluable. Um,
Especially when you like it allows you to dictate the tempo of the game
yeah.
completely in your favor. Especially when those monsters have decent shooting, like Shalaxi and Bellicor do.
Mhm. I think the other thing is it's the mental game that
Mm.
incursion brings because I find that you know your opponent knowing you can do this, be able to bring down monsters and spit monsters out and drop 6 inches and charge from anywhere now can be sometimes more valuable than actually doing it.
Yeah,
Because again, sometimes I mean you play the game, but I don't know about yourself, but for me, I can kind of get a bead on how my opponent plays the game early on. And if I feel like my opponent's kind of gone into the mental trap with it, I will play into it. So I'll
mhm.
start like, maybe even picking up a monster. If I've got some spare TP and picking up a monster and then kind of reminding them, yeah, I can drop here, I can drop there. And then maybe just trying to, force them into over committing to the screening, meaning they're going to have less resources to play with. Um, and then yeah, and then also you do get the opponents that just they're either not very good at screening or they just forget to screen. And then in those cases, you see the gap and you've just got to take it by both. Like you grab it by the horns and then you take it and you slam Scarbrand into something important because they've left it open. And then you're like, oh well. So yeah, I mean, look, I got very bored of Incursion because for me it was very stale. I guess for a lot of people it was very stale. Um, but I can't lie, the allure will always be there because it is just a great, great detachment, and um, yeah, it's just a really good detachment overall, and I still think it is one of the best detachments in the game. Um, and we'll go back to being our best detachment if uncontested very soon. But it's cool to see you sticking on it and still smashing it with it. Um, so are you going to kind of? I know we're both going South Coast in what is it, about a month's time? About a month?
It's going to be the same list that goes to South
You're going to
Coast.
understand this. That was the question. And unless there's a certain character of yours that may get a nerf before then, I doubt it will happen by then, but it might do. So if that certain character does get hammered into the ground, I mean, I guess we all we can do is wait and see what happens. And
Exactly.
by the certain character, I am talking about Shalaxi.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will be like, well, why would she be getting nerfed? The datasheet in the Emperor Children Codex is going to be different, and it's whether they force us to take it or not. We don't know.
But there's a
Take
very
it with
simple
salt.
principle to this here. Is there any way that she stays the way she currently is in Emperor's Children because she would be better than Fulgrim? There is no
She won't.
world where they allow that to happen.
So Fulgrim, we've just seen Fulgrim's data sheet. I think it's all really underwhelming. Personally, I do look at him and think, yeah, he's no Angron or no Magnus, or no Mortarion either. Um, and a quote that was said to me, I'm not going to say where from, but a quote that was said to me by a place that knows their thing, and is some place that I get my info from. Literally said there is a there is a Shalaxi being a Primarch level character is a problem to some people who have power to change it. Maybe not quite that quote, but that is basically what they were saying. Essentially, to me, that shouts she's going to be sharing a codex with a Primarch. They're not going to have her show up that Primarch, especially because even that Primarch isn't fantastic, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying he's bad. He's not bad. I just think he's a bit underwhelming. His combat, when I looked at his combat, I was like, he's as good as Be'lakor. He's a 2 damage sweep, so he
Yeah.
sits above Be'lakor in that. But he's like smack attacks are the difference is sustained to lethal. Apart from that, it's the exact same, and it's like, he can get fight first, which is really nice, but then he has to sacrifice fight first for -1 to hit, and because it's like pick one
Yeah.
ability, that type of ability. So I don't know.
We'll
So
see
yeah,
if
I
data sheets stay
yeah,
the same.
yeah. So I I don't know for 100% to take it with salt, but from things that have been said to me and hinted to me, and then also being logical with this, I would bet money that she does not stay the same, and we will be forced to take, because they're not going to have two completely different data sheets for the same character in the game. They won't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but if you haven't seen the theme by now, we do not take priority over anyone else. Then there's nothing I can say above than that. We will not take priority. We will get the worst data sheet. I'm not saying she's going to be bad, but I'm going to bet my hedges on that she's going to be nowhere near what she is. But
I think the same can be
well, we
said
can,
for keepers in general because a lot of people
yeah,
look at the Keeper of Secrets model and go, toughness 9? I feel like that could be something that happens.
yeah. I've heard. I know nothing about this one, but I've heard some stuff that
Yeah.
apparently they are also changing.
Yeah.
I don't know. We will see.
We will see exactly, but I I can't say I'd be happy about it. Of course, I wouldn't because I am a Shalaxi simp.
None, none of
Um,
we are both Shalaxis. We'll both
yeah,
cry over it.
exactly. But it's one of those things that I can understand to an extent the viewpoint they are coming from. Will it fit her lore? No. She kills bloodthirsters for fun in the lore. So it's her favourite thing to hunt. So absolutely that will not work. If she is all of a sudden like strength 8 or strength 10, suddenly not able to even wound a bloodthirster. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to kill a lot of fun. But as you said, we don't get priority in any instance as demons as
Um,
a faction.
um, but we're bordering on a topic that's too controversial to mention yet. We'll wait till confirmations comes up, then we can talk about it. But yeah. So again, well done on that performance. But in the nicest way possible, please don't do that again, because I don't need that in my life. Yeah, I had a 40-point lead on you in the UKTC, and now I'm 7 points behind you, or
It's just
7 or 8 points behind
seven or 8 points. Wow, close.
you. And I'll quote you from literally a week or two. No, a week before that, you literally said, "Oh, you're too far ahead. I ain't going to catch you." And then you got some random, because I keep track of this. You got some random score that upped your points by like 20, like literally just before the event. From I guess it was an event that just hadn't submitted a score, and then you jumped me with the six. Because as soon as you went 5-1, I was like, okay, he's going to go 6-0. I know he is, because once he gets to this point, he very rarely doesn't do it. And I was like, well, 5-1 is probably enough to close the gap. 6-0 will jump me. And I was like, damn it. But yeah, don't do that at South Coast, please. But
A
trying to
5-0,
score.
a 5-0 at South Coast, we are talking like another 15 odd points.
Yeah, if you go 5-0 and I don't, if you go 5-0 and I go 3-2, it is game over. If I go 5-0 and you don't, that makes it incredibly interesting. So, but
Yeah,
I
for
won't
sure.
go 5-0. I won't go 5-0. I don't think. My head is all over the place as far as lists goes at the moment. I haven't got my head in any kind of list solidly enough where you have. And I think that just gives you that advantage, but we'll see. I'm just trying to make up excuses to why I'm not going to go 5-0.
Plague
So,
Legion.
mate, I'm taking it this weekend. I'm fighting every urge to do something different, because I'm so insecure when it comes to lists. I chuck so many lists around that I change my mind. I'm gonna try. It's good. It's very good. And if I get the right matchups, um, as we spoke with Lawrence, because that will be released before this video, so you can hear all about that. If you haven't checked that one out, go check that one out. It's a very good video. And Lawrence deep dives into his amazing 5-0 event winning result with that. Um, in what could possibly be the second best demon detachment in about a month's time. Um,
Woohoo!
yeah, I like it's so fun. I love Plague Legion. It's so fun. It is my play style down to a T. But I can't lie, the temptation to play Incursion is there, because not just because of you, but you're part of it. Because I know every time I walk up to your table and you're playing, I'm like, I look at it and I go, I do miss it. As much as I've moaned about it getting stale, I do miss it, because it is fun when you're just taking these big monsters and just throwing them across the board and going, ha, deal with it. So,
Yeah.
also, if we are getting those nerfs to certain characters, and we do maybe get away with running them at South Coast, I may do it and run my worlds list one more time with Shalaxi Keeper, just as a final send off, because I don't want to miss, the chance to use her one more time. Because it will probably be the last ever time we'll ever get to use Shalaxi properly ever again. So
Yeah.
who knows?
I'm still very hopeful that we don't. If we do get data sheet changes in the Emperor's Children book, I'd be hopeful that we get to keep the demon ones. But as we've said, it's very unlikely. Very unlikely. It's pure wishful
I,
thinking on my part.
yeah, I just the logical point here, and people will argue this and say we're wrong, and that's fine. Everyone will have their opinion, and truth will come out eventually. But let's look at it logically. Are they going to have Shalaxi in the state she's in compared to that Fulgrim data sheet? No, they're not going to do that.
Why has he only
And
got
then
6 big attacks?
yeah,
That
I'm telling
really
you,
is like weird.
he's just Be'lakor.
Yeah.
He's just Slaneshi Be'lakor. He's not as good. Maybe I'm missing something. Though I do think the power in that book is the detachments. It's not so much
Yes.
the data sheets, because I don't look at any of those data sheets and think, wow. Like, I looked at all of them and I was like, yeah, they're not great. Noise Marines are really disappointing. The what's the combat dudes?
Flawless blades.
Yeah, the Slaneshi 8 pound. They're they're okay. They're nice. Lucius is okay. Um, what else did we see? We saw some others. The Lord profiles are okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing something. Um, but we'll see. The detachments do look cool and they do look good. So I think the power is going to be in the detachments. But
Yeah, for sure.
Carnival of Excess does look really fun, which is the Demon Emperor's Children one. It's that typical combine two factions type of one, like you get with like the Dukari uh, Reaper's Wager. And is it Final Day? Is that the GSC Tyranid one? Is that the one from Grotmus? The one where you can mix them two, whatever the name of that one is. So is that kind of typical? When these units are close to each other, they get better, they get work, blah blah blah. They
I
become
feel
more
like Talon's
powered.
the Emperor.
Yeah, exactly. Um, with the Sisters of Silence and the Custodes. So, except cooler because it's Slaneshi. Um, and it may that detachment may be the future for all people that want to play Slanesh in about a year and a bit's time. So we will see. Um, so I would definitely recommend looking at that detachment if you have a bit of both or you want to play Emperor's Children. But if you're going to be one of those refuse to change stubborn people like myself, then you won't look at it and you won't go anywhere. And Byron, I don't know. I know you are kind of umming and ahhing legions, I think, a little bit.
So for Emperor's Children, I'm gonna get the army set.
It is a it
Purely
is a cool box set.
so for me, right? It's I'm not massively impressed with the Noise Marines, but I
No,
quite
they're disappointing, I think, model
yeah.
wise.
Model wise, I don't mind the datasheet because I think actually two blast masters in a 6-man squad. Let's see what the points are, but it's actually not so bad. Like
Yeah.
6 shots at strength 10, 3 damage is all right.
Yeah, the Blast Masters are decent. I just think they lack a little bit, but they're okay. The
They,
models,
they definitely
they
do
just
lack. It's just you'll start to see some very disgusting combos with the detachments, and
100%.
I think once the book is out fully, people will start to like take that stuff apart and see the nasty combos. And again, it's all very points relative. I really like Flawless Blades with Lucius. I'm automatically saying in my head, I'm going to have a squad of 6 of them with Lucius.
I think you'll
Um,
see that a lot, to be fair.
yeah, just
I
because I
think,
think that can kill almost anything in the
yeah.
game.
I think it's their version of Typhus and Six Death Shroud, to be
Yeah,
fair.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
With the difference being that emphasis is on this will kill pretty much anything in the game in one round of combat versus Death Shroud just being like we're going to live and there's nothing you can do about it.
Death Shroud can be key when they want to be. Like, when they roll those lethal, they are bastards. But,
But yeah, for sure.
yeah,
But we're talking about even like someone like Lucius with his flawless blades going into Typhus and his Death Shroud. Lucius picks up a big chunk of that unit.
actually saying that, I take back what I said about Lucius. Actually, Lucius was one of the only data sheets I looked at. I was like, "Oh, that's quite tasty." Actually, he's
Yeah,
actually not bad in combat.
he hits
Um,
very hard now, and
he actually does, but he just doesn't have. I just really sad they didn't do anything with his armor and shit, bringing him back and transferring, and
he's
that's the
not really
shame.
the Eternal anymore. Then is he? Like he
No,
doesn't
he's
come
not.
back a lot.
He's Lucius the. Well, I guess you could just what is he? The flawless
Faultless,
blade or
faultless.
faultless blade? I guess he's because he's all about like slicey dicey, right? And he's quite good. Is it characters, monsters, and walks?
Walkers, very odd choice, not
I
vehicles.
know.
'Cause
I saw it. I was
they
like,
don't want him doing
I
what
kind of.
Shanghai does. They don't want him like ripping knights apart and stuff. Or well, not knights, but
Yeah.
like even Russes and stuff.
Did Knights not have the Walker keyword? I thought they
Knights,
did, didn't they?
knights do. I misspoke.
Brilliant.
I meant like Lehmans and stuff.
I think yeah, you're right. Because when you think of walkers, dreadnoughts, knights, stuff like that, and it's like okay, that's a lot more impressive for him to fight than a rhino, right? So,
Yeah, for sure.
um, I'm just not looking forward to uppy Danny rhinos. That's not going to be fun. In their mechanized detachment, which I hate. I don't think to me, Emperor Children and mechanized don't go together. But what do I know? Cool. Right. So we're gonna stop talking about another faction now, even if it does slightly involve us, because screw them. They're gonna get our shit and they're gonna be better. But they're not actually. They're killing our our savior in Shalaxian. I hate it. Oh
Mine
god.
to
Right.
replace her with the Bloodthirster. Talking about stuff that I could replace her
N-
with.
Never, never, never,
It's
never,
not even
never.
close to the same thing. Not even close.
It's not even close, unless you have Fury's Cage. In which case, it's
Yeah,
not
but I don't have that
terrible.
in Incursion.
Yeah, I know. We're just on Blood Legion, mate. Blood Legion is amazing.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Sure.
Do you
Well,
know how tempted I
I'm
was
going
to
to
test out
pretend that
some
that
Blood
even
Legion?
exists.
No, I was really tempted. Knight, you know me. I fucking hate Core, and I was like, not because it's anything amazing. I was like, I think maybe there's something here, but I don't know. It's just not exciting. There's nothing in that detachment. There's one thing in that detachment that gets me a little bit excited, and it's Kamikaze Monster. That's the only thing. So I'm going to shove this monster in front of your face. I'm going to kill something with it, and then it's going to die and kill loads of shit around it. It's the
You
only
know
thing.
you're going to roll a 1 on the explosion, though, right? Like,
Yeah, I know. I'll be on the Bloodthirster as well. You know it, and he'll just be going.
yeah.
Even when I die, I don't help you. I'm like, fuck off. Oh god. Right. I think we'll call it there. So, um, thank you for tuning in. As always, we appreciate it. Leave a like and subscribe if you like the content and you like these type of videos, because I think we're doing more interview videos now, which are quite cool. So you don't just get to hear my dulcet tones; you also get to hear Byron's dulcet tones, and then the occasional exciting guest. But we will catch you all in the next one. Thank you for tuning in.